Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is a tutorial on this eye look right here using the Dominique Cosmetics Latte 2 palette. Looks like this. I absolutely love this palette. I do have Latte 1. I love this one as well. I probably love this one maybe a little bit more, but I feel like they work together in tandem. The only thing that I do mention this at the end when I give you guys my final thoughts on this palette, is that I wish that there was something kind of in the middle between these two, these darker shades, and then these ones right here. I would have liked to have seen that, but that's just a personal preference. So you guys will hear my full final thoughts though at the end of this video. And I do want to keep this intro short. If you are new, I want to take a second to welcome you to the video and to my channel. I'm Lauren Jade. I'm 57. I have mature, crepey, wrinkly skin with hooded eyes that are slightly downturned, and so I'm always looking for ways to rock the hooded eye situation and pass my tips and tricks on to you guys. Even though I know we all have different eye shapes and different levels of hoodedness, I'm hoping you guys can pick up a few tips and tricks so you guys can rock your hooded eye situation as well. And that's it. If you guys are new, I'd love to have you join me. Please hit the subscribe button and the post notification bell right next to it. That way YouTube notifies you each and every time I upload. So without further ado, if you guys want to see how I created this look and see this palette in action, then just keep on watching and let's get right into this tutorial. All right, I am setting my primer. I've already primed with MAC's Paint Pot and Soft Ochre, and I'm just lightly setting this in this little upper crease area, so right on my upper socket bone right here, just kind of in the shape that I'm planning to place the eyeshadow. I'm also kind of tapping it in just so it looks like it's part of the skin, so it looks like it's lit from within, you know, looks like it's coming from within your skin. I'm using this shade right over here, and then I'm going to grab this shade, which is like a bone shade, and I'm going to use that right underneath like my brow bone area, and I'm just going to kind of dust a little bit underneath here just to kind of mix with the transition shades and my bronzer that I'm going to use. I'm also going to grab that same shade and kind of highlight the shape of my socket here by putting this right on this lid and just kind of highlighting right in here. And then I'm going to what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and grab my bronzer now, and I'm going to use the Benefit Hoola bronzer right here. This is from last year's blush bar. So I'm going to start with, normally I kind of start like right in through here, so right at the bridge of the nose, and I'm going to just kind of dust this in through this upper socket region, so it's right in alignment, so directly like underneath like the brow area, so this inner socket right here, and connect it to like the bridge of the nose, like right here, and just kind of dust that through and fluff it up into like this brow area. And it really helps to look down into the mirror, and people will tell you, well, you know, you have to access your lid space, but that's not exactly why they look down into the mirror. They look down into the mirror so that they can really fully see that socket bone and see that socket shape. When I look down into here, I can see my own natural shading, and that's just kind of what you want to follow. You want to get into the hollow of the eye, and that's just going to kind of sort of give you a guide as to kind of where you want to go with these shadows. Now for me, I can see my own natural shading, my orbital bone, so that's just really what I'm following. And I'm just going to dust whatever's left over through the rest of the socket, so pretty much right on that orbital bone. You guys have seen me do this steps like 1,000 times, so I'm trying to go through it kind of quickly. So because there's a lot of shadows in these palettes that I really want to use, I'm going to grab this shade, the caramel shade from the Latte 1 palette, and you guys can totally skip this step if you guys are following along. I'm just going to further map out my shape here just by deepening it up this area and just kind of putting in a little fake crease. I like to kind of get in here and kind of hollow out, and I always like that dark to light contrast, so by putting in like this little fake crease, I have some depth and dimension right through the base here, and then I have that dark to light contrast. And again, you guys can totally skip this step. I just do it to kind of help me map out like my eyeshadow shape that I'm going for. So I just, and this brush is so nice, and it just kind of really blends right into that bronzer, so no blending needed. I normally don't take a lot of shadows in this inner socket. That's usually where I just kind of keep my bronzer, and I just like that because it gives such a nice sultry fade to the look. I just don't take like reds and greens and yellows and oranges like in this far. I kind of keep that bronzer on the inner socket, and then I kind of place the other shades like on this outer section. So that's what I'm going to do. So the first shade I'm going to go into is this one, Blonde Roasted. That one I can actually pronounce. I'm not a coffee drinker, so I'm not going to try to pronounce these. So I'm going to grab that on the tip of this Sigma E38 brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of stamp kind of like right where I'm planning to kind of place the shadows and then kind of blend them out. So for me, I'm going to go like right here. It's kind of a nice little, right in my little plug and play area. I'm just going to kind of put a little stamp, a little dot like right there. And this is a little bit higher up, and simply because I'm going to blend that, I'm going to blend around that, and then I'm going to take the darker shades in the same kind of technique, just a little bit lower. So this one's going up a little bit higher just because I want this yellow shade to kind of peek above all the other shades. I'm just going to kind of blend out the edges first. Then I'm going to go back in. I'm going to get the other side here real quick, just always wanting to make sure that they're kind of even here. So like right in this area, and I want to kind of blend this out, and it's going to kind of go in the direction of like this brow here. So that's kind of the alignment. I'm just going to blend out these edges here. Then I'm going to go back in again and just kind of stamp again, just kind of deepen that up a little bit. I like this little dotting method because it really adds depth and dimension to this outer crease section over here. So I really like this. So that's what I'm doing. I'm kind of going this direction here, which is kind of up towards like in the crease, kind of up towards like the brow area here. And then this one down here, I'm just kind of coming inward. So almost like this little V motion here I'm kind of making. And then I'm going to take a larger brush, the E40 from Sigma, and I'm just going to circular motions, just blending that out, making it nice and smooth, the edges and everything. Grab just a tiny bit more, and I'm going to just place this on this little outer section. So like kind of like in a slant, kind of going up, like in a V area. I'm going to connect it to, like you've got this crease color here. So the idea is to connect, you know, your crease color to this. So that's what I'm gonna do. So this is kind of like where my little dot is. So I'll redo that. So like my little dot's like right here. And then I'm going to connect this little arm right here to this. Just adding a little bit extra right out here. So I'm gonna start this kind of outer V and start to kind of build up on this outer section. Area right there. Then I'm going to grab a little extra. See, 231 small tapered blending brush, and I'm going to take this Strawberry Milk shade right over here, and I'm going to do the same thing as far as, oh, I got a little, gotta be a cat hair. All right, so I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did, the same little stamping technique, but with a smaller brush and just a little bit lower than like where I kind of stamped my little yellow. So I'm just going to kind of stamp a little bit lower. I'm almost kind of really right into that socket bone now. Before I was kind of a little bit above it, and now I'm kind of just like a little bit below it. I'm still kind of within that yellow one. I'm just a little bit lower. And I'm just going to take the edges of that and just kind of push, kind of go upwards, almost like at a diagonal, like if I were going kind of up towards the brow as opposed to say straight in and across. I'm kind of going up. And then I'm just going to take the other edge of that and just kind of come down, kind of blend it into the yellow shade that I went up here with on my lid. a little bit extra of that and just kind of do the same exact thing that I did, just kind of go up in here. So kind of like right like underneath that little socket bone, kind of connecting again to the crease. So right at the end of where like the crease shades come like this, I'm just going to kind of connect that little arm, that other V, and just kind of come down. I'm just going to actually tap a little bit of that on there. Just so I'm gonna, it's easier when you start blending like the darker shades, just to kind of have that in there as insurance, so you're not just putting the dark color directly on your lid. So I'm just kind of building up this outer section. So here's like my little crease shades kind of going in, and I'm connecting this little arm to that. I'm hoping that makes sense. And for me, because of the eyeshadow shape that I'm going for, I'm kind of blending everything out into the direction. So I'm kind of going up and out, but also towards like the tail of the brow. So that's kind of where I'm wanting everything to kind of be lifted up towards. And I'm going to go into the Latte 1 palette, and I'm going to grab Caramel again, and I'm just going to just kind of dust that on the inner socket, just kind of like right on top of that bronzer shade, just to kind of deepen this little inner area up just a tad. And just sort of connect. I often work in sections just because my eyes are slightly downturned, and it just makes it easier. So I'll do like this inner socket, and then I will kind of do the outer half, and then I usually kind of connect whatever's left over kind of like through the middle, and it just somehow connects. So that's kind of how I do it, just because my eyes are slightly downturned. So with this palette, the Latte 2, I felt like there was kind of a jump between these shades here and then these two darker ones, if you can see. So I'm going to go into the Latte 1 palette, and if you can tell, this palette has a lot more cohesiveness to it in terms of, you know, like you've got your lights, mediums, and darks, so it's easy to transition those shades together. So I'm going to go into and start to kind of build some depth now on this outer corner. So I'm going to take Hazelnut right here, which is just a really nice kind of a warm reddish, kind of a brown shade, and I'm going to work in this little outer area. So I'm going to start on the outer part of the lid, and then I'm just going to take it up, and I'm taking very, very little at a time. I'm just going to kind of build that up, and once I have this kind of placed and just kind of tapped in where I want it, I'm going to kind of tap out these edges, just because when I go to blend it, I don't want to blend all this color out into like all this area over here. So when you kind of just blend out the edges first before you do your other blending, it just really kind of helps so that you don't blow out the color like all over the place. So I'm just lightly blending out those edges. It just helps in the overall blending process. I'm going to go back now into that reddish shade and into that yellow shade, and I'm just going to pick a little bit of that reddish shade up on the same brush that I used the first time, and I'm just going to kind of tap over it just to kind of put that color back in. Sometimes when you do a lot of like blending, you kind of lose like some of the pigment, right, and some of the like the first lighter shades, so you always have to kind of go back in and put them back in and just kind of freshen them up again. So that's kind of what I'm doing. So I'll try my new Ciate London. I just got this in my BoxyCharm. It is the Everyday Vacay setting powder, and just do a tiny bit of baking. I always forget this step. I swear I have to start making notes of all my steps because I forget them. All right, so I'm going to go back in now to the Latte 2 palette, and I'm going to grab this shade. And I'm going to just put this like right underneath the brow bone now and just kind of drag it down a little bit just to kind of catch the edges of like everything that I kind of blended out here. It's such a nice little way to kind of make everything kind of look more airbrushed. And these bone shades, I call them little magic erasers, because if for some reason you think that, well, you know, maybe it got the blending, you know, got a little too high, you can just kind of drag this down and it'll catch the edges of that and just make everything look nice and smooth. I also like to take here's a good example. So this is a really fat one. This is an eye sweep, but it's just a really thick, fat shader brush. And I like to just tap and press. And that just also kind of meshes everything together. I just like how that looks, you know, when you kind of push that product into the skin, it just softens it and just, I don't know, it just kind of blends it really nicely without even like doing it. A lot of times when you just go like this, you're just kind of, you know, pushing the color like down here, but you're blending at the same time. It's amazing how that works. So I do this technique a lot. All right, so I'm going to smoke this now along the lash line and kind of start to create like a really small little tiny baby shadow wing. And I'm going to take this shade, and again, not a coffee drinker, so I'm not going to try to pronounce these, but this is one of the dark ones in the Latte 2, and this is a Sigma E20, and I'm just going to smoke this along this lash line right here. Gonna make like almost like a little shadow wing. Gonna kind of add a little bit of depth now and just kind of smoke that. A little bit of this darkest shade, Coffee Beans, I can say that one. I'm gonna pick up that with a little bit of this, and I'm gonna use this little angled liner brush. And as always, I'm gonna start following my lower lash line up and just kind of create like that little wingtip. You can see right there. And this is a quick, easy way to kind of do a little baby shadowing. So once I have this little wingtip going, then I usually take like the angled side, right, and just kind of press, make sure that that's even on both sides. And then I just start to kind of fill in. And you can just like draw from like here, you know, and just take it in, and then you have a nice little wing. I always just kind of do it a little bit in increments at a time, just so I can get it exactly where I want it. And I just sort of connect the edge and draw that in, connect, draw it in, connect. And now I have this nice little tiny little baby shadow wing going. And then I'm going to take the inside here and I'm just going to do the inner. I always take it a little bit thinner on the inner corner and then thicker on the outer corner because my eyes are slightly downturned. So when you do that, you kind of get the illusion that they're not so downturned. Using a flat definer brush, I'm going to take that darkest shade on the flat definer brush and I'm going to put that closest to the lash line, and I'm just going to kind of wiggle this in between the lashes and just kind of stamp. You want it the darkest closest to the lash line so that you get that depth and dimension into those lashes. So that's kind of what I'm going to do with this. And I'm keeping that just like on this outer corner right here. To do this with like two, like kind of like a light and a dark color, because then you get that really nice gradient fade on your lower lash line. So doing it with like a gray and a black works really nicely because you can smoke that gray up and then you put the black closest to the lash line and you just get that nice gradient fade. I often do this with like, you know, like a light brown and a darker brown. So now I'm just going to go ahead, or like a brown and a black. So I'm just going to smoke on this lower lash line right here and just kind of connect it to this little wing up here, just so that there's some connection from this wing area here into the lower lash line smoke area right here. Just going to kind of make that all into one. Make sure that my wing is going in alignment like with my shadow, so everything is just kind of going up. And you can just kind of measure, you can kind of, you know, I usually kind of go like this and just kind of make sure that you know, the wing is in alignment with the eyebrow and everything, and the lower lash line going up, so that there's that uniformity there, just making sure that it all is kind of in that same alignment. I'm gonna take a little bit more of that darker hazelnut shade from the Latte 1 palette, and I'm gonna grab a little bit of this one as well. And I'm going to go from the tip of the wing, which is right here, and I'm just gonna bring that color in a little bit. And I'm gonna take it into the, like into the natural crease, so it's kind of got that inverted C again. But I'm going from the tip right here and bringing it in. It just ensures that everything is in alignment, and I just like how that looks. It's a good way to kind of add some more depth and dimension into this little outer section here without worrying that it's just going to blow up and overtake the look, because you've already got your wing established, and now you're just bringing that inward. So it's just a nice way to add depth and dimension and not having to worry that, okay, now I've got to blend all of this out all over the place. You don't have to, because you're right on top of your wing and you're just bringing it in so little, so little. I'm gonna grab the P. Louise base. This is in the shade 0, and this is a P. Louise brush, and I'm gonna just do more like a little half cut crease. Even just like the tiniest amount is like enough. So I'm gonna just do like this front area right here where I'm planning to place my shimmers. And I'm going to, I think I'm just going to grab, I think I'm just going to use the same brush, and I'm going to work with this golden one right here, and then this one. I'm going to take this gold one right here in the middle. See how pretty that is. Oh, so pretty. I'm taking this up a little bit higher just so that I can catfish. I'm going to grab just a tiny bit of this darker one here, just like a little bit, just so I can kind of mesh that in to this little outer area right here. I'm not taking it all the way to the end though. And then I'm going to flip the brush over, and I'm going to take that lighter shade and put that one in the front. Oh, so, so pretty. Oh, I can hardly breathe. And now I'm just going to kind of mesh like them together. I'm like a bull in a china shop when it comes to putting on these falsies, but I felt like the look was so pretty. I felt like it needed it. I typically don't like falsies just because I have such a limited lid space anyway with the hooded eye situation. So I just feel like it takes away a little bit of that bright-eyed effect, but it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because they look good when you have them on, but you know, I don't like to take away that lid space. So I'm going to go ahead now and touch up the makeup, and then I'm going to spray the face, and I'm going to come back and give you guys my final thoughts on this palette. And I just love how the look came out. So, all right, I'm going to spray my face with the Anastasia Dewy Set, and I have my fan, and then I'm going to come back and give you guys my final thoughts. All right, and we are back, and this is the final look. I absolutely love how it came out, but I just kind of vibe with this whole kind of a sunset theme, you know, the reds and the oranges and the corals and, you know, of course the bronzy. So I just love how this came out. So let's talk about the palette. I'm going to give you guys my final thoughts on this. So I absolutely love the Latte 1 palette. I feel like you have everything in this palette to complete a look. You've got, you know, lighter tones, you've got some mid-tones, and you've got your deeper tones, and you've got, you know, some really nice shimmers to work with. You do have a couple of pops of color. I feel like you have everything you need in here to do a full look, and you don't really need to double dip. With this palette, I felt like, and this is just, you know, me, I would have liked to have seen something kind of, because these two are both fairly dark, I would have liked to seen something kind of in the middle, just to kind of, because that's why I dipped into this one. I would have liked to seen something in the middle. But other than that, the mattes blended very, I mean, it was just an effortless blend. They're very pigmented. I like that there's a bone shade in here. I love, of course, these shimmers. You kind of have that metal foil effect. You don't need to spritz your brush with the mixing medium, and they kind of have a glitter reflex, as you can see, just a lot of shine and sparkle. So love these palettes. But her quality, the Dominique Cosmetics, very good quality. So absolutely love the palette. So super happy with that. All right, before I let you guys go, I want to talk about my Valentine's Day look. I am going to do something wearable this year. I think last year I did a glitter bomb with a, you know, just like a double cut crease thing, I think, I don't know, but it was really kind of over the top. So this year I want to do something kind of romantic and just kind of soft and wearable. I mean, that's kind of the vibe I'm going for. I am going to use the new Charlotte Tilbury, the Pillow Talk, and this is what the palette looks like. I'm sure you guys have probably seen this all over social media. It comes with a little film sheet, so you kind of have your, primer, and then you have your enhance shade, and then you have like a smoke shade. So she lists them all like 1, 2, 3. So it's almost like a plug and play type of situation. But we are going to use this palette, and I do have her lipsticks that I've had for a couple years, so I'm going to use those. And then I'm going to use this blush, which I absolutely love. This is in the shade Ecstasy. This is the Cheek to Chic blush. Love, love, love this. So next, the next tutorial that we're going to do for the Valentine's Day look is going to be all Charlotte Tilbury products that I have. Anyway, all right, that's it. That completes the look. I hope you guys like it. And that's it. I love you guys. I will see you all in my next one.